Yemi Akinbamijo, PhD Executive Director, Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. What does that do?
Right. Thank you very much, Tony, for this opportunity to speak to you on the activities of FARA. The Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa is the continental warehouse of agricultural research coordination on the continent. So in a generic sense, FARA was set up to help coordinate, catalyze, and communicate agricultural research on the continent. We have the mandate of the African Union, where, as a matter of fact, we are the technical arm to the Department of Rural Economy and Agriculture of the African Union Commission. So by implication, we have the support of the 54 member states.
Now, you yourself are from Nigeria.
That's right.
And if we are to listen to the gossip columnists or the economists or the world so-called leaders, they look at Nigeria and South Africa as the two leading entities on the African continent. We're at the bottom, you guys are at the top, if you want to do it that way around. Would you say that's a fair summarization, that we are the most powerful units in Africa?
That is an understatement, Tony. First of all, I mean, from a demographic point of view, 1 in every 4 black Africans is a Nigerian. That's an enormous statistics. South Africa may not have the numbers of Nigeria, but the economic capital is also there. So these two nations, they have the clout. And Nigeria, fortunately, I think, has the numbers and the economy. And so it's not just for nothing on a carte blanche that we are normally pointed out as the big brothers.
But we don't act like big brothers in the same family.
You're right, we don't. And sometimes I think there is more of a rivalry, a very, very quiet undertone, if you like. And it's unfortunate because we are probably driven by forces outside Africa. And these forces tend to draw us apart and bring us together.
Are you talking about Western powers?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And they deliberately cause that division?
I wouldn't say, but that's the way things are.
Doesn't that
I mean, that's difficult to judge.
Yes. If let's surmise that you're correct in your opinion
prognosis,
there,
yeah.
Your prognosis of the situation, then we have sitting on the sidelines the Chinese who will just march in and take over.
Well, Africa is without a fence and without a gate man at the moment. It's up for grabs.
Should it be?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't. I mean, take a look at Australia. Everybody in Australia put together can come into Nigeria on holidays and we won't even know they are here. They are in. But Australia has a very strong and watertight policy on maintaining its territorial integrity. We don't have that in Africa. Now, as a matter of fact, if we police our territory very well, we stand a lot to gain. In terms of actually maintaining the sanity of the agricultural commodities, in terms of the SPS, it is something we have to do. But nobody is responsible. I mean, everybody kind of looks after his own little patch, but forgetting that, I mean, Africa is a conglomeration of countries that we are one of the same. I used to say that we may be in different rooms, but we are definitely in the same house. So why don't we look out for each other? I mean, the landlocked countries feel, okay, I'm landlocked. But those that are not landlocked, I mean, we are not less concerned. I mean, it should be a joint responsibility whether you are landlocked or you are not landlocked. And let's take a proactive step to secure the territorial integrity of Africa from invasion from all sorts of pathogens in terms of plant health, animal health, food safety, but also in terms of immigrants. We can have a common policy on that. We can. But of course, if China comes into one country today and puts in some $2 billion investment, it will be very difficult for that country to say, don't come. It's a question of they call you, jump, and you say, how high? We are at this conference now talking about agricultural development and stuff like that. They say to us, go the way of conservation agriculture. They say to us, go the way of mulching. And that's the way to feed the world. That's the way to sustain our environment. How will that, tell me who is, the countries that are importing, exporting food into Africa that gives us this undesirable tag of a net importer of food? Are they mulching? Are they growing, are they cultivating by donkeys? Are they cultivating by hoes and cutlasses? They keep cultivating large scale, aerial spraying by aircrafts, and then reaping their harvest in their millions of their tons. And that's, of course, why they can afford to feed their livestock and have even much more to export. And then they tell us in Africa, oh, go conservation. I don't have a problem with that. But, let's face it. What was the path? You cannot preach water and drink wine. They tell us, when I used to live in Cameroon as head of African Union, Inter-African Phytosanitary Council, every single night I saw timbers, the timber logs going in front of my house to the port. They tell us, so keep carbon emissions to the minimum. Stop deforestation. Now, those logs, they're going where? They're going over to Europe. Now, who is fueling the deforestation? Leave the African forests. Let's have a ban on deforestation or importation or exportation of Africa's timber for 10 years, and let's restabilize our forests. And let's see what will happen. But, if you want to put a bill in Parliament today to stop African emigrating to America or to Europe, it happens like this in one day. But put a bill that will save Africa's forest. Oh no, dilly-dallying. We are on the third African agricultural climate change conference. We're still talking. And this afternoon, my last slide is going to challenge people to say, hey, stop, enough of the blah blah, let's start the do-do. Yeah.
The blah blah and the do-do.
Yes.
The blah blah has been going on for years. The do-do has not been happening. That's your summarization. Are we guilty in South Africa of blah blah and no do-do?
To be honest, I will not be as provocative against South Africa. I think South Africa, in a sense, has got its own internal policies and struggles to deal with. And I can live with that. But what I am not happy with South Africa about is that South Africa needs to exert itself as a political leader, and it must be in that niche that it deserves. And I don't see South Africa yet in that niche. You cannot, I think South Africa has a lot more to offer Africa and Africans than it is currently doing. It's not enough to say that because there's food on my table, it's the ostrich mentality actually. You dip your head in the sand and imagine that the outside world does not exist. And that is why, if people cannot go to Europe, they may find their way into your doorstep.
Yes, we were talking before we came on camera about a summit, and we were also talking about an exhibition, a trade fair. Mm-hmm. How would you see that working? Would you see it working one period in South Africa, then we move on to Nigeria and do the same thing there in Nigeria, so that the same parties are crossing over with each other? Would you see it that way?
Well,
or
Tony,
one coming here and not going to Nigeria, or what?
Well, that could be an option. It could be a first cut. But it does not mean that that thought or that process cannot evolve.
Yes, I could see it would be a very good thing for us to have a trade fair in South Africa from the point of view of what it would bring into the country. but then there's got to be a quid pro quo for Nigeria if we did it here. We'd have to come and do it there as well.
Yeah, and I would say that as a matter of demonstrating goodwill, you may want to start from Nigeria. But, you know, I can tell you that the federal government of Nigeria is very eager to be in the front line of strengthening agricultural markets and trade. The current Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria, Dr. Akinbamijo, is extremely passionate about strengthening the smallholder farming enterprise on the continent.
And so is our government.
And so we need to build markets. And you know, as a matter of fact, we have the figures on our side. Africa's population is about 1 billion. And if we strengthen the trade potentials on the continent, we will cut down drastically all of these unwanted debts.
Here's a good faith for you, a really good faith one for you from Nigeria. You've got petrol, we don't. We're paying a high price for it. Why can't Big Brother help us?
Well, I mean, it's, as you say in Nigeria, it's rub my back, I rub your back.
Oil, yes.
So, I mean, I think...
Do you think that could happen, that we could scratch each other's backs to the extent?
All cards can be on the table. All cards can be on the table.
Are you really of that opinion and in that position to be able to say that everything is possible?
Well,
are you opening a door?
Theoretically,
yes.
Theoretically, yes. But in practice, I am not in government in Nigeria.
You have an influence in government, though.
I have an important link, put it that way.
Could that important link open the door? I'm carrying the message back to my government.
It is potentially possible. Because Minister Adesina told me in person, and you can quote me anywhere, saying, Yemi, now that you are head of FARA, he would like to see an African-owned process that will culminate in developing markets, because of course without the markets, the incentive to produce is not going to be there. But he wants to even go beyond that and wants to set a benchmark for others to follow. So if I'm hearing or feeling the vibes from South Africa, I think the more the merrier, and I think we have a good opportunity to actually synergize. And I can, at one phone call, I can reach my minister and say, hey, I am in South Africa. I'm speaking with people in South Africa, and I'm beginning to feel that we may need to, you know, extend a kind of a goodwill gesture to partner with South Africa in this.
I think an invitation to your country I think one of the problems between both of our countries is that neither of us know too much about each other. And it would be very nice for us to know about each other. And I think an extended visit from a media group such as ourselves to come to Nigeria and see what your farming situations are, what methods you use, and to interview the minister and so on. And I would personally guarantee that this footage will go to the minister and other ministers, Minister of Trade and so on. So if you and I are sitting here now talking to each other, are we going to shake hands on the possibility that that may happen?
Of course.
Then we will shake hands in front of the camera. Yeah.
Thank you, Tony. I think it's possible, and we can exploit